So imagine you are an ancient king. You are facing total annihilation, and your military is completely powerless. Your only hope is basically hiring an internationally renowned spiritual hitman. Welcome to the deep dive. But before we get into this incredible story, I really want to start by speaking a very warm, divine blessing over you. May your day be filled with peace, and may your entire week ahead be guided, protected, and, profoundly blessed. We are just so glad you're joining us today.
Yeah, it is really great to be exploring this with you today. It's a narrative that really flips our typical expectations of ancient history completely upside down.
It really does. I mean, normally when we look at ancient texts from this era, we brace ourselves for like dry genealogies or incredibly complex architectural
Like
measurements.
absolutely, the qubits.
Right, so many qubits.
Right.
But our mission today is to unpack an account from Numbers chapter 22 that reads like like a geopolitical thriller laced with biting comedy. We're exploring what happens when political panic collides with ancient pagan magic.
Yeah, because you have a terrified ancient king, you have a mercenary prophet, and most famously, a talking donkey.
Right, which on the surface, that lineup sounds like a fable,
Right.
like an ancient children's story.
It does, yeah.
But as we dig into the historical context and the actual mechanics of what was happening in the ancient Near East, we find this brilliant piece of satire. It's a story designed to expose the utter blindness of so-called experts.
Okay, let's unpack this. To really understand why a donkey is suddenly giving a master class in spiritual awareness, we first have to look at the massive political crisis that caused this bizarre collision of characters in the first place.
Right, so we really have to set the scene here, both geographically and politically. At this point in the narrative, the Israelites, they aren't just wandering aimlessly through the desert in small bands anymore.
No, they're huge.
Exactly. They have become a massive unified force. So they are camped in the plains of Moab, which is this vast expanse on the east side of the Jordan River. It's right across from Jericho. And they aren't exactly flying under the radar at this point.
Not at all.
I mean, hundreds of thousands of people suddenly setting up a literal city of tents on your border is, it's going to make any neighboring nation incredibly nervous.
Oh, especially considering their recent track record. I
Yeah.
mean, they have just utterly wiped out two very powerful, entrenched local kings, Sihon and Og.
Right.
These were rulers with formidable reputations, and the Israelites just completely dismantled their territories. So if you put yourself in the sandals of Balak, who is the king of Moab, you look out over your borders and you see this victorious, nomadic nation just camping right on your doorstep.
It's pure panic. The historical texts actually describe Moab as being filled with this sickening dread. Balak is terrified. He knows a conventional military strike against Israel is going to end in his own destruction.
Yeah, he's seen what happened to the guys next door.
Exactly. So, how does a king react when swords and chariots aren't going to cut it? He looks for a supernatural advantage.
He does. He pivots straight to ancient psychological and spiritual warfare. Balak actually forms a political alliance with the elders of Midian to address this crisis, which is a fascinating little detail on its own.
Yeah, because the Midianites were a semi-nomadic people, right? They were descendants of Abraham and his concubine Keturah.
Yes, exactly.
So they actually share a distant family tree with the Israelites. It's kind of like a hostile family reunion.
That is a great way to put it. But right now, Moab and Midian are teaming up to pool their funds. They want to hire a very specific guy to solve their problem, a man named Balaam.
Right, and looking at the historical context, Balaam wasn't a priest in the way we typically think of one today, right? He was more like a highly paid, internationally renowned political fixer.
Yeah, a spiritual mercenary, basically.
Huh?
His weapon of choice wasn't military tactics. It was divination and targeted curses.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating here is that Balaam wasn't just some character invented by the Israelites to make a theological point later on.
Yeah.
He was a highly renowned, documented historical figure in the ancient Near East.
See, this is the part that completely changes how you read this text. We actually have real archaeological evidence for this specific guy.
We do. And it is incredibly rare to find this kind of extra-biblical proof. So in 1967, archaeologists uncovered an inscription in a ruined temple at a site called Deir Allah.
Over in modern-day Jordan, right?
Yeah, in Jordan. This text, which was written on plaster, specifically begins with the title, quote, Balaam, son of Beer, seer of the gods.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it describes him as a man who received these dramatic visions in the night, predicting things like drought and darkness.
Seer of the gods. I mean, that title alone explains why Balak wanted him. When you have a massive enemy army on your border, you don't call like a local mystic. You call the absolute top tier, historically verified expert to tip the spiritual scales in your favor.
Exactly. You call the best.
But hiring the best comes with massive logistical hurdles because Balaam lived in a place called Pethor, near the Euphrates River in Mesopotamia.
Right, which is roughly 640 kilometers or about 400 miles away from Moab.
So let's just put that in perspective for a second. For Balak's messengers to just travel to Balaam, deliver the job offer, and come back, we are looking at a 25-day journey each way.
Yeah, nearly 2 months of travel just for the commute.
Right. This isn't sending a quick encrypted message or, wiring funds. This is a massive, grueling investment of time, manpower, and resources just to get an initial meeting.
It really highlights the absolute desperation of King Balak. I mean, he sends his top officials, the elders of Moab and Midian, and they're carrying what the text calls the fees for divination.
Right, bringing the cash up front.
Exactly. They make this month-long trek across harsh terrain just to knock on Balaam's door
Yeah.
and essentially say, please come curse this people because they're too powerful for me.
And this leads us to what we could call the trap of greed. Because Balaam is this famous, high-rolling fixer who lives almost a month away, Balak's initial offer just isn't going to cut it. When the messengers arrive with the fees, Balaam tells them to stay the night so he can see what God says. And God's response is completely unambiguous. He says, do not go with them. You must not curse this people because they are blessed.
It is a hard no. There is no gray area there.
Yep.
So Balaam sends the messengers packing, and you'd think that would be the end of it.
But Balak does not take no for an answer. He's a king, right? He's used to buying his way out of problems. He just assumes Balaam is holding out for a better contract.
Of course he does.
So Balak sends a second group of emissaries. But this time, they are more numerous, they are higher-ranking princes, and the offer is essentially a blank check. Balak promises to reward him handsomely and do literally whatever Balaam asks.
It's the ultimate allure. Supreme wealth, unchecked honor, and massive political favor.
Exactly. And this is where the text gets incredibly layered, because Balaam tells these new fancy princes, even if Balak gave me his palace filled with silver and gold, I could not do anything great or small to go beyond the command of the Lord my God.
Which, on the surface, that sounds incredibly pious.
It really does. It sounds like perfect, unwavering obedience.
Yeah, like he's totally surrendered.
But then Balaam immediately says, now spend the night here so I can find out what else the Lord will tell me. And God actually comes to him and says, go with them.
Right.
But then, just 2 verses later, the text tells us God was incredibly angry that Balaam went. Wait, why is God angry if he just gave Balaam permission to go? So what does this all mean? Is the text just contradicting itself here? Or is Balaam trying to find a loophole?
It is definitely the latter. And we really have to understand how ancient magic worked to see why this is happening.
Yeah.
In the pagan world, divination was highly transactional.
Okay.
You perform the right ritual, you say the exact right incantation, you sacrifice the right animal, and you basically force the gods to do your bidding.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it was like putting a coin in a vending machine to get a curse out.
Mm.
That's how Balaam operated his entire career.
Ah, so Balaam is treating God like a slot machine. He didn't get the jackpot the first time, so he's asking the princes to stick around so he can pull the lever again.
Precisely. His declaration of obedience was entirely hollow. His heart was completely set on the money. By asking God a second time after already receiving a crystal clear no, he was trying to manipulate the divine will to align with his own greed.
Wow.
Yeah, so God allows him to go. He grants him the permission he so stubbornly sought. But God's anger burns because Balaam's compliance is completely hypocritical.
He is physically following the rules,
Oh.
saying, I won't go until you say so, but his internal agenda is utterly corrupt. And man, that is such a profound concept for you, for anyone listening right now.
Oh, absolutely.
We can say all the right things, we can project this image of perfect piety and compliance, but just going through the motions of following the rules doesn't disguise a corrupt, self-serving motive.
It's the sharp difference between doing what is right because it is right versus doing the bare minimum required to get what you want. Balaam wanted that blank check, and he honestly thought he could outsmart the divine to get it.
Which perfectly sets the stage for the climax of this journey, because this arrogant, hypocritical trek toward wealth leads directly to the most famous, ironic, and honestly, strangely hilarious part of the story.
The encounter on the road.
Yes. Here's where it gets really interesting. So Balaam is riding his donkey. He's heading back with the princes of Moab. He's probably calculating how he's going to spend all that silver and gold. And suddenly, The angel of the Lord stands in the path with a drawn sword, acting as an adversary.
Right.
Now, Balaam, the internationally feared seer of the gods, the man paid exorbitant fees for his supposed spiritual sight, sees absolutely nothing. But his donkey, the donkey sees the angel perfectly.
And the donkey very understandably takes evasive action.
3 separate times. It's incredible physical comedy. First, the angel stands in the open road. The donkey sees him and just bolts off the path into a field. Balaam is furious. He beats the donkey to force her back onto the road.
Yeah.
The second time, the angel corners them in a narrow path between 2 vineyard walls. The donkey sees the angel, tries to squeeze past, and in the process, totally crushes Balaam's foot against the stone wall.
I mean, think about the absolute indignity of that. You have this great, majestic prophet riding with these royal princes, and he gets his foot smashed against a wall by his own transportation.
He beats her again, even harder this time.
Yeah.
Then, the third time, the angel stands in a spot so narrow there is 0 room to turn right or left. The donkey sees the angel and realizes it's just hopeless. She literally just folds her legs and lays down right underneath Balaam.
Oh, man.
And Balaam completely loses it. He is blinded by rage and humiliation, and he starts beating her ruthlessly with his staff.
This is the peak of the biting satire we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Let's really look at the contrast here. Balaam is a professional visionary.
Hmm.
He is the top-tier expert of the ancient world.
Right, the guy with the Dear Allah inscription.
Exactly. Yet in this moment, he's entirely blind to the terrifying divine reality standing right in front of his face. Meanwhile, his humble, dumb beast of burden has perfect 20/20 spiritual vision.
The text is brutally mocking the pretensions of this grand expert. It is the ultimate irony. And then the impossible happens. The donkey speaks. The text tells us God opened the donkey's mouth, and she says, "What have I done to you to make you beat me these 3 times?"
It's really worth pausing on the mechanics of this, actually. Some scholars, like R.K. Harrison, point out an interesting nuance here.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He suggests that perhaps God didn't give the donkey vocal cords to speak fluent Aramaic or Hebrew, but rather that the donkey's natural brain communicated a message of such clear pain, anger, and resentment that the seer finally understood it verbally in his own mind.
That's a really interesting take. But honestly, whether it was literal human speech or divinely interpreted braying, look at Balaam's reaction. He doesn't fall off his donkey in shock. He doesn't say, "Wait, did my livestock just talk to me?"
No, he doesn't miss a beat.
He is so angry that he just argues back. He engages in a petty, heated debate with his ride. He actually yells at the donkey, "You made a fool of me. If I had a sword in my hand, I would kill you right now."
Which is deeply ironic and quite pathetic, really, because the angel standing 3 feet in front of him does have a sword and is fully prepared to kill him.
Right. The internationally feared prophet is reduced to bickering with a farm animal, and the donkey uses basic logic to win the argument. She points out, "Hey, haven't I been your faithful ride your entire life? Have I ever made a habit of doing this?"
Yeah.
And Balaam, just utterly defeated, has to mutter, "No."
It's only at that point of total humiliation that God opens Balaam's eyes. He finally sees the angel of the Lord standing there with the drawn sword, and he falls face down in the dirt.
I bet he did.
Yeah, and the angel makes the reality of the situation terrifyingly clear. He says, "Your path is a reckless one before me. The donkey saw me. If she hadn't turned away, I would have certainly killed you by now, but I would have spared her."
His own foolish animal literally saved his life. And what I love about this is how the angel strips away every last ounce of Balaam's illusion of control. Balaam, terrified, offers to go back home. He's finally ready to cancel the contract.
Right.
But the angel says, "No, go with the men, but you are to speak only the word that I tell you."
The divine essentially unplugs Balaam from his own power source.
Yeah.
He is allowed to proceed, but he's completely defanged. He is no longer the powerful mercenary arriving to dictate terms and cash a massive check. He's just a hijacked mouthpiece at this point.
Which brings us to the final, incredibly tense showdown at the border. King Balak is so anxious that he actually rides out to the edge of his territory to the border of the Arnon River to meet Balaam personally.
They couldn't even wait at the palace.
No, and Balak is visibly frustrated. He immediately starts laying into him, like, "Why didn't you come when I first called you? Am I not able to reward you heavily?"
Balak is still totally trapped in a transactional mindset. He thinks he bought an expert. He assumes this is just a business deal that was delayed by some tough negotiations.
Right.
But Balaam's demeanor has completely changed from the guy who was hoping for that palace of silver and gold. He looks at the king and just deflates his entire geopolitical strategy. He says, "Well, I'm here now, but I have absolutely zero power to say whatever I want. The word that God puts in my mouth, that is what I must speak.
Man, he has to look his royal client in the eye and admit that his highly expensive expertise is entirely useless. He is completely at the mercy of the God of Israel.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, there is a massive theological reversal happening here. Think about who the leader of Israel is at this time. It's Moses. But Moses is completely absent from this entire story.
That's right. Moses isn't mentioned once in this entire encounter. Why is the greatest prophet of Israel sidelined while their fate is being decided on a mountain above them?
It actually traces back to Moses' own recent failure at the waters of Meribah.
Oh, right.
Yeah, the Israelites needed water, and God told Moses to speak to a rock to provide it. Instead, Moses, in a fit of rage and pride, struck the rock twice with his staff, failing to honor God's exact command.
Wow.
Because of that rebellion, Moses' leadership is compromised. So what does God do to protect his people from Balak's curse?
He commandeers the enemy's weapon.
Exactly. Instead of using his chosen prophet Moses, God takes a pagan diviner, a man whose entire career is based on manipulating foreign deities for cash, and takes undeniable control of him. God forces the hired cursor to pronounce the most powerful, unshakable blessings over the nation of Israel.
That is amazing.
It's demonstrating that God's protection of his people doesn't rely on the perfection of their human leaders. He can just hijack the very weapons formed against them.
And the segment of the narrative we are looking at ends with this incredibly dramatic setup. Balak takes Balaam up to a place called Bamoth Baal.
Which translates to the high places of Baal. This is a major cultural and religious stronghold for the worship of the Canaanite storm god.
Right, so Balak sacrifices cattle and sheep on these pagan altars, giving Balaam a vantage point where he can look down and see a portion of the massive Israelite camp. Balak thinks he is loading the gun.
Oh yeah, he thinks he's got this in the bag.
He really does. He's standing in his own pagan stronghold, looking down at his enemy, having finally secured the best spiritual hitman money can buy. He is absolutely convinced he has won.
But the tension is palpable, because as we know from the subsequent chapters, Balaam is about to open his mouth. And instead of the devastating curse Balak paid for, outpours this beautiful, poetic prophecy of blessing and invincibility over Israel. The expert's tongue is completely taken over by the divine reality he was previously blind to.
It is such a phenomenal, rich narrative. I mean, we started with a terrified king looking out over the plains of Moab, desperate enough to hire a historically verified ancient mercenary from a 400-mile distance.
Yes, quite the commute.
Quite the commute. And we explored the trap of greed, where a supposedly wise leader tries to find loopholes in God's commands just to secure a payday. And then we witnessed a deeply satirical intervention, where an everyday, stubborn beast of burden completely outsmarted and outsaw an international expert.
It's a story that aggressively forces us to question our assumptions about who holds real vision, who is truly blind, and who actually holds the power in any given situation.
It absolutely does. And that leaves us with something really important to chew on as we wrap up today's deep dive. In our modern lives, you and I, we rely so heavily on experts. We lean on credentials, our own intellect, our sophisticated understanding of how the world works. We think we have the angles figured out.
We do.
But this ancient story from Numbers challenges us to look around our own lives with a bit more humility. What foolish, simple, or seemingly mundane things in your daily life might actually be seeing a bigger, truer reality, a reality that your own expertise, pride, or ambition is making you completely blind to. Just something to think about this week as you go about your work. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. We always appreciate you taking the time to learn with us. Have a wonderful week, and remember, God blesses all the listeners.
Until next time.